How much is that dog in the window? The one with the waggly tail. How much is that dog in the window? I do hope that dog is for sale. I must take a trip to California and leave my poor sweetheart alone. If he has a dog, he won't be lonesome, and the doggy will have a good home. How much is that dog in the window? The one with the waggly tail. How much is that dog in the window? I do hope that dog is for sale. I read in the papers there are robbers with flashlights that shine in the dark. If he has a doggy to protect him, he'll scare them away with one bark. I don't want a bunny or a kitty. I don't want a parrot that talks. I don't want a bowl of little fishies. You can't take a goldfish for a walk. How much is that dog in the window? The one with the waggly tail. How much is that dog in the window? I do hope that doggies, I do hope that doggies, I do hope that doggies for sale.
And it isn't. I'm sorry. Well, not this one that we're going to talk about. But maybe there is a dog out there for sale somewhere for you. We'll talk about that. Welcome to Agree or Disagree, the podcast. The podcast that's going to the dogs. Get it? All right, I'll stop. I'm Kevin Olenek. You can find me on Facebook, Kevin Olenek, like Agree or Disagree, the podcast on Facebook. Follow me on Twitter at KVOLE. Follow Spreaker.com, KEVOLE is where you can hear all of the podcasts. You can subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and you are also probably listening to this on PowerCast 97.9 Internet Radio, Wednesday nights, 8 o'clock Pacific. Go to PowerCast979.com. And yes, our topic today is dogs. You know them. You love them. You are absolutely attracted to them on social media. I mean, look at them. They are so cute and fun. And, by the way, very much influencing social media. There are more than 174 million posts on Instagram with the hashtag dog. They get the most likes. They warm the heart. They're actually making money on social media for people as well. We won't get into that today specifically, as we are actually petting a dog as we are doing this. But there is the other side of this. And as cute as they are, and as lovable as they are, and as fun as they are, there are challenges, cost, issues like training, purchase, behavior, especially with the rise in the encouragement of purchasing a rescue dog, which we are going to talk about today. Now, you might have noticed on my own social media that I've been posting more with the dog the last couple of months since I moved back to Vancouver. That dog's name is Jebb. He is a rescue dog with an interesting journey. And the person I've been living with, my roommate for the last couple of months, Jen, is joining me today to talk about the journey of purchasing Jebb. Hello.
Hello, everyone.
And Jebb is here as well. He will be either A, a distraction, or B...
an interpretive narrator.
Yes, an interpretive narrator.
Silent narrator.
Yes. But there will be photos of him, but he will not be speaking necessarily. Where do we start? I guess you've had dogs pretty much all your life.
Mostly, yes.
You actually, before this, for those that are listening to this and know Jebb, you had a dog for a long time.
Yeah, my dog prior to this was also a rescue, and he was the most gentle, benevolent, agreeable, lovely, large dog you could imagine, and he lived to the age of 13 and a half, and about 2 weeks after that dog died, Jebb arrived in my life.
Now, there's some people that it's fascinating to kind of hear that, because there's some people that would be like, that's the one dog and that's it. I can't go to another dog. And yet others are like you that just when you had another dog. Like how do you, because there is a dog grieving process that we don't talk a lot about in our culture.
And that's true. And Opie, my previous dog, lived to be the age of 13 and a half. And both the dog and I knew, I'm going to say 6 to 8 months before he died, that he was on his way out. So we had this grieving process together, but I had a remarkable bond with that dog. And there are some people who would say, no, I'm never going to get another dog. And that's fair. If your heart's not ready for another dog, so be it. For me, I think the best thing that I can do for another dog when my dog dies is to give the same life to another dog in need, which is how I chose Jebb, because I actually chose Jebb before my dog died, and it took a few weeks to organize the adoption because my dog was on its way out and Jebb was having some difficulties being fostered, and I saw him on the rescue site and I was like, that's my next dog. And I knew it immediately, and there was a transition period. For me, that's the right thing to do. For some other people, no, another dog might not come along for years.
You know when you know.
That's correct.
I've always, how do you pick a dog? Like you said, you knew. Does the dog, would you say?
I would say the dog picks you.
Yeah, actually. I was going to ask, yeah.
Because when I got Opie, my previous dog, I had interviewed a couple of other dogs, but as soon as I met him, I knew that was my dog. Just like I knew before Opie died, and I saw Jebb on the PB&Chi rescue site. PB&Chi is a rescue organization. It's Pitbull and Chihuahua. PB&Chi like PB&J.
Okay, wait. So Jebb is a Pitbull?
Yeah, Jebb's a pit bull mix. He's, according to his veterinary records, he's Aussie cattle dog and pit bull. But we're not entirely sure. He could be beagle and pit bull. He's pit bull and something.
We have to have the dramatic music because...
Well, of course, because Pitbull.
Pitbull. As soon as someone says Pitbull, that's like, we're turned off. Apparently.
Ooh, scary, savage Pibble.
Yeah, and actually he's quite angrily laying on the couch right now.
He's snuggling the hell out of that cushion.
Yes. So, anyway, go on.
Where was I?
The dog picks you.
So, I think you just... kind of know. And in Jebb's case, I saw him on the rescue website. I liked the look of him. I could empathize with his story. I inquired about him, and he actually had a foster. And then about a week later, I saw him pop up again on the rescue website, and I contacted the rescue agency. I said, what happened? He was not adoptable, and his foster hadn't worked out. And my dog, I knew, was on the way out. He was 13 and a half. So the rescue agency and I agreed that we would wait a couple of weeks. Jebb would go for some training and manners, and I would deal with the medical issues around my declining dog, and we'd touch base. And it was about 10 days, I think, from the time my dog died to when Jebb came to my house.
So, so he comes with some challenges. Now, Opie was a rescue too. So what is it about, Is it ethical for you for rescue, or what is it?
Well, I just kind of prefer to rescue dogs because I don't have a need for a purebred dog. If somebody needs to have a purebred husky or whatever they want, so long as they have the requirements for that breed of dog, whatever, it's not my choice. For me, I prefer to rescue dogs that are perhaps in challenging situations. With Opie, it was that he was 80 pounds at a year old, and very larger dogs, high energy dogs, are harder to adopt. And I loved him, and I'm a high energy person, so there we go. With Jebb, he, first and foremost, his first strike against him is that he's a pit bull mix.
Mm-hmm. It's time for the dramatic music again.
It's totally time for the
Yeah.
So, he's a pit bull. They are stereotyped and challenging dogs. They're also extremely rewarding dogs. And despite the fact that Jebb's manners overall are really quite brilliant, he's highly reactive to other dogs. Cue the dramatic music. And I mean, he goes from being a very passive, sweet, savage snuggler to lunging, barking, and snarling at the sight of just about any other dog.
Yeah, so with this specific rescue, with Jebb, and I think for those that are like, you know what, I really wanted a rescue, I want a rescue dog. Give a cautionary tale for those that are considering it. Not that we are saying don't do it, but something to be considered about when you're doing this.
I think when you're getting any dog, whether you're getting a purebred, whether you're getting a rescue, whether you're privately adopting a dog, there are some really important considerations around lifestyle, breed of dog, breed requirement, and human requirement. And all these things kind of have to line up in order for an adoption to be successful. So, for example, if you really like the look of a husky and you adopt a husky, but you don't have the time to run a young husky for literally 2 hours a day, don't get a husky, because that dog is going to be energetic until it's probably between the ages of 10 and 12. So if you don't have 10 and 12 years of high activity and high tasks and stimulation for that dog breed, you're not going to be well matched with the dog. You might like the way they look, but might not fit with your family. In the case of something like a pit bull, which have challenges, if you're not willing to be highly involved with your dog, you might want to choose something that's perhaps a little lower maintenance. If you like the look of a spaniel, you have to understand that spaniels are hunting dogs and require a lot of exercise and a lot of stimulation. So it's really important to match your lifestyle with the dog breed.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah. And house and family and kids and allergies and...
Right. If you have a child that's allergic to dogs, you might want to consider something in the poodle range because they're hypoallergenic. But if your household is not high activity, you probably don't want to get a poodle because they are high energy dogs.
Yeah. Now, with Jebb, like any other human, not that Jebb's a human, although there might have been a time I considered him human at one point in our, but...
That's between you and Jebb.
Yeah, but like humans, we all have a backstory before we come into people's lives. Mm-hmm. And it's not always as fluffy and wonderful as the Instagram posts keep showing us. So for those who don't know, tell us the Jebb journey.
So this is what I know about my dog. When I adopted him about 18 months ago, he was 2.5. What I know about him is that he was taken off the streets at the end of December of 2016. And they don't know how long he was living on the streets, but he and another dog were caught at the same time. And Jebb was deemed unadoptable because he kept snarling and lunging at anybody who came to meet him. And he was a death row doggy who was rescued by a rescue agency in northern Arizona. And they took Jebb and his street partner, I think the dog's name was Ferdinand or Fernando. Anyway, they were rescued to northern Arizona. And the rescue that I got him from, PB&G, liaised with the rescue in Arizona to bring him up here. So what I know is that he was incarcerated off the street. He was rescued. He spent a few days traveling from Arizona to Vancouver in a crate in a van full of other dogs in crates, which was very stressful for him. And then
if I was in a crate with other dogs, it wouldn't be fun in the hot heat of Arizona with a bunch of fur.
Well, no, and I mean, I don't like being on a crowded bus,
Yeah.
So he came to Vancouver, and he had a wonderful foster, and that foster didn't work out, and then he had another foster, and that didn't work out, and then he came to me. So Jebb has had some experiences that we don't know about, and we don't know his history prior to December 2016. I don't know if he ran away, if he ran after a lizard, if he was somebody trying to turn him into a fighting dog. I don't know his history. What I know is that aside from when other dogs are around, he's practically perfect in every way.
It's just the other dogs that are...
Yes.
Yeah. It's tough for the single guy in this household to maybe go walk the dog and meet other women with dog when the dog...
Yeah, he's not really a chick magnet.
No, he's not. And that's okay. That's
I mean, he's a chick magnet when there's no other dogs around.
Absolutely.
But not so much when you're just walking down the street.
No. And which, brings up the point of, we're about a week or two away from the Bell Let's Talk conversation here in Canada, for those that are listening.
About mental illness, yes.
Yes. We don't talk a lot about dog mental illness and dog anxiety.
No.
And dog pressures.
No.
Because it's not...
Well, because we expect that when we give a dog a home, that dog is just going to suddenly become the perfect dog. We don't take into account that dog might have had experiences and trauma that we need to learn about. And that's kind of important when you get a rescue. You need to know as much about their history as you can walking in, and then you need to be very, very patient while yourself and your new doggy get to know each other.
Because it takes time.
Because it takes time. Especially if, like Jebb, he's had 4 homes before me. And that's by the age of 2.5. That's not a long time.
No.
And he spent some time on the streets, and there was all sorts of other things. He's had challenges.
Yeah. That's basically 2.5, 24, 630, 4 houses. That's 430. That's an average of living in a house every 6 months.
Yeah.
Just a little bit over 6 months.
Yeah.
Like, that's not
now,
stable.
In Jebb's case, somebody must have loved him enough to train him a little, because he knew how to sit, he knew how to walk on a leash, he knew how to take treats gently from your hand. He wasn't feral, but things went sideways for him. And that's the situation for a lot of rescue dogs, is they think things are going fine, and then something goes sideways, and not unlike a homeless person, they suddenly find themselves in very challenging circumstances.
So what are the challenges training Jebb? What have been and what currently are?
Okay, well, in the beginning, Jebb was hostile to just about everything except me. He was hostile to his crate. He was hostile to men with beards. He was hostile to anybody standing over his head. He was hostile about people touching his feet. Now, he never bit anyone, but he would growl and snarl and snap. And if somebody got too close to me and he didn't know them, he would get angry and he would growl. And he was unsocialized and fearful. And much like a human being who is fearful, he tended to act out in ways that were aggressive. So that was the first challenge, is teaching him that any environment where I was safe. That took about 4 months.
And then next?
And then next it was experiences outside. Because outside there'd be dragons. It was people in parkas, certainly other dogs. Plastic bags blowing in the wind, unfamiliar objects on the trail, all sorts of things that would just cause him anxiety. And in his anxiety, he would bark, he would snarl, he would lunge. All sorts of unacceptable social behaviors.
How have you trained him?
Slowly. Gently. He's taught me a lot of patience, because I had to realize that he's scared and unfamiliar, and I'd had to learn to teach him the same way you teach a child. So if a child messes up, you don't necessarily punish the child for not knowing. I had to accept that there were a lot of things that Jebb might have known at one point. He didn't trust anymore. Trust is hugely important to a rescue dog. Hugely. I would say it took him a year, really, before he trusted me. And he still doesn't entirely trust me because he still freaks out about other dogs. If he trusted me to keep him safe, or if he trusted that he didn't have to protect me, he wouldn't freak out. There's a barrier there. It's huge.
Well, he's getting better, but it's, yeah.
And you've actually been instrumental in that. You've been very patient with him. You've been very kind to him. You've taught him the off-key song of his people.
Yes, well, well, I haven't taught him how to sing, but, you know.
You've been more tolerant of it than most people. What a rescue dog requires is patience. First and foremost, you have to be willing to be patient, because you don't know what they don't know.
Right.
And part of the process is figuring out what they know and what they don't know.
Yeah. Now, you've had help getting with training, because you have hired a professional trainer.
Yeah, he's had a couple of sessions with a trainer. I've also had experience in doggy daycare, and I've had lots of dogs, and I've done lots of research. But really, training is very, very, very important. If you're going to get a rescue dog, you should probably expect to spend about $1,000 on training. And that's about a dozen sessions.
Now, how would you, if someone said if we were on Facebook Live or we were doing something interactive here and said, okay, how do I pick a trainer? What would be the questions like? What's the difference between, like, I think there's a lot of really great trainers out there, but what's something that you'd be like, okay, this is what one, I think a dog trainer, this is that little difference.
Well, there's a couple of ways that trainers approach. There's balance training, which is a combination of structure and reward. There's reward-based training, and then there's structured training. Structured training, in my opinion, is more like police dogs, military dogs. They have jobs. They have specific jobs. In Jebb's case, he really requires firm boundaries and a whole lot of praise. He's a huge treat and praise junkie. It depends on what you want out of the dog. For me, with Jebb, because he's had so much trauma, what I want is a dog that's trusting of his environment, and doesn't lose his nut every time he sees another dog. I don't need him to make friends. I don't need him to be a dog park dog. I just need him to not lose it when there's another dog within, 100 feet?
Well, it's funny because he senses, he knows where the dogs are. He knows this territory.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah. He knows there's a dog across the street and there's, yeah. It's funny, though, it's interesting, though, with him because if the dog is actually barking at him, he's kind of calmer. A bit.
Right, but if the dog surprises him,
then he loses.
Then he loses his nut.
Yeah.
Like if the dog's over there and barking, oh well, okay, there's a dog over there barking. But it took about a year to get him there. When I first got him, if there was a dog barking anywhere near him, he'd lose his nut.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is practice. So if you're going to get a rescue, you have to have some sense of how anxious your dog is or isn't. Because if it's going to take a couple of years to train your dog, you need to be prepared for that. Jebb is afraid of everything. The big scary pit bull, cue dramatic music, is afraid
I'm
of
hoping that
everything.
I hope no one is listening to this podcast and doing the dramatic music drinking game because it's over.
I totally hope they are. So Jebb is afraid of hoses, bathtubs, unfamiliar garbage bags, dogs, leaves, sketchy-looking pedestrians, that thing over there that he doesn't know. A lot of his aggression is based in fear. That's hard because you don't necessarily know what your dog is afraid of if you don't know what they've been exposed to prior to you getting them.
Now, this leads to two other paths to go down. The first one is around the topic of barking.
Okay.
Because there are dogs that bark a lot. Jebb is not one of those dogs. He's not a dog barker.
He's not hugely barkalicious, no.
No. But in your opinion as a dog owner with the barking, how do you silence that?
Okay, so Jebb tends to bark at unfamiliar things.
Yeah.
Or...
Well, as you call it, borking. It's just
borking at the things.
Yeah.
So what does he bork at? Well, the next door neighbor, if they're on their balcony and he's not expecting it, he generally barks out of being startled. And I find what works with Jebb is to just thank him for borking and for letting me know that the thing is there. As soon as I tell him he's a good boy, he stops borking. Not all breeds of dog are like this, which is why it's really important to know your breed when you're getting a rescue.
Yeah.
Know what you want out of a dog before you get the dog.
Yeah. The next part of this question, the path I want to go down, is discipline. Now, because... And which will lead to another path. Because I think a lot of the times, poor doggies that end up in rescue situations are because owners can't handle this dog and have tried. And quite frankly, they have been abused. They have been hit in the wrong place. They have been hit very hard, etc. At the same time, so balancing not doing that thing that is really stupid with trying to be corrective with the dog when dog makes error or makes choices, like meeting up with a bear. Anyway.
That's a bit extreme. Most dogs are not going to come across bears.
Well, there might have been a story with a guy walking a dog.
Around a golf course in an area where there are bears.
Yeah.
So, okay. In the case of Jebb is a herding dog pit bull mix. He is a willful, dominant breed of dog, and he requires a strong hand. So could you ask me perhaps a more specific question about discipline?
Do you think it's okay to spank a dog?
Oh, that's a tough question. I have had to be physical with Jebb on occasion, mostly because he was trying to be dominant with me, and on occasion he has tried to bite me. I have never harmed him. I have put him in his place more than once. Sometimes that means sitting on him. Sometimes that means leaning on him. Occasionally it has meant pulling up on his choke chain. Jebb is also 65 pounds of dense muscular brick.
Do not know it.
Right. So if you're not prepared to meet the personality of your dog, you're not going to be happy, and neither is your dog. I've had a lifetime of experience with dogs. I was able for this dog. I would not suggest my dog for a first-time dog owner. So discipline needs to be corrective, it needs to be focused, and forgiveness needs to be immediate. You're correcting your dog, you're not punishing your dog.
What's the difference?
Correcting your dog means that you're showing them a different choice to make. Punishing your dog means that you're punishing your dog. And much like children, dogs need to be corrected and guided. They don't need to be harmed, ever.
Okay. Now, what are your thoughts? Because I've heard this. Are there specific areas that you feel are beneficial to spank? Some people will say that you smack the dog on the nose.
No. I highly disagree with smacking a dog in the face.
Okay, I've heard that. Some say that. I'm not. That's why we have a podcast, because we can talk about this.
Right. So imagine having somebody hit you in the nose, and imagine that that's several hundred, perhaps thousand-fold more sensitive for a dog. That's horrible. Now, I have had to physically discipline my dog a couple of times. What I did was correct him by driving my knuckle into his flank. I didn't harm him. I didn't even hurt him. I just got his attention. I didn't punch him. I didn't slap him. You don't do that. You wouldn't do it to a child. Don't do it to a dog.
Fair.
Because a dog understands about the same as a small child would. Come on. I mean, if my dog is about to dart into traffic, I'll yank him backwards. But I'm not going to hurt him.
No. But there's so many thoughts around disciplining a dog that are
right,
rather extreme in some ways. But
will I grab him and make him sit? Yes. Will I wrap myself around him and hold him still while he's struggling? Yes. Will I hold him back from doing something stupid? Yes.
Because he does not make the best choice.
Because he doesn't make good decisions.
He don't always. It's okay though, Jebby. He's here now, saying hello. Now, the next part about this is, do we want to go health or do we want to go finding a home first?
That's up to you.
I guess I'm the host. Let's talk about the health challenges. And I'm not saying that Jebb is wonderfully healthy, but
okay. When I got Jebb, he was about 15 pounds lighter than he is now, mostly because of just stress and trauma. Sit, bud. Sit. Thanks. So I've added about 15 pounds to him. When I got him, he was being fed a poultry-based food, and what was coming out of the back end of the dog was really unhealthy, so we switched him to lemon rice, and now his digestion is much better. It was impossible to know for anybody that he's actually allergic to birds.
So you've had to spend a little bit more money on quality dog food.
That is correct.
And it's worth it to do it.
Well, it's worth it to do it, absolutely, because it cuts down on vet bills. When I first got him, he was prone to ear infections. He hasn't had an ear infection in several months. He's shiny, and he's strong, and he's properly fed.
Yeah. It's like a human, right? He needs to have a healthy...
Well, every mammal, every creature needs good nutrition, and dogs are no different.
Yeah, the reason I think I wanted to bring that aspect of that up is because that can be a significant cost, because you just don't pick up Pure Chow or whatever the latest dog.
No, and I mean, obviously you're going to feed your animal based on your budget. For me, I have always endeavored to feed my dogs the best food I can afford. If you're going to be reasonable with a medium to large dog, you're going to be looking at spending probably $75 a month on dog food. That's the upper range. But it also depends on the dog. Some dogs have iron constitutions, others have allergies.
Right. And they'll kind of they pick you. They pick their food in some ways.
Well, the best gauge of what's going on inside the dog is what comes out of the dog.
Right. So it is an important thing. The other thing that's really it's a big controversy here in Vancouver and the BC area, because first of all, you're owning a form of a pit bull. Do I cue the dramatic music again? There. And second, and there's just this big perception about pit bulls out there that are unfortunately inaccurate. And there are some people in the Vancouver community that want the pit bull to be banned. Mm-hmm. But there's also, at least in BC compared to Alberta, for the most part, you can get a pet deposit. But it's still... Is it challenging? What are the challenges finding a place to live in the rental market of Vancouver, which is both A, expensive, B, small,
and C, restrictive.
Restrictive.
So it took me approximately 6 months from the last place I was living to where we are living now to find proper place for my dog. And part of that was lack of pet-friendly housing. But even within pet-friendly housing, if you have something like a Rottweiler, a Pit Bull, a Cane Corso, a Presa Canario, any of these quote-unquote power breeds, you're probably going to find restrictions on your rental housing. I was very fortunate. My landlords didn't even ask me what breed he was. They just asked for a pet deposit. Great. But if you are looking for rental housing, certainly in the Lower Mainland, you're going to want to give yourself probably 6 months to find a pet-friendly apartment at all, let alone something that will allow a quote-unquote power breed.
It's tough. Right?
It's tough. And you can be prepared to pay a pet deposit of, I believe the law allows for up to half a month's rent. And when you consider that a bachelor pad in the Lower Mainland of Vancouver can cost $1,500, that's a chunk of coin.
Yeah. So, and then you have to pay your own security deposit plus the pet deposit. So you're coming up with $3,000.
So basically you have to be prepared to pay 2 months rent.
Yeah.
And spend probably 6 months looking for a place. Might be easier if you have what I call a condo dog, which is generally anything under about 20 pounds.
Right. But that's your dog chose you, and
Right.
life that you have chosen to live there. But yeah,
I'd just like to interject here for a moment and let everybody know that I'm getting the stink eye from the dog because he really wants to go for a walk. And he's sitting in his good boy spot and glaring at me because I'm not taking him outside.
yes, he's done all of the behavioral good boy things, but the jerk that's hosting the podcast is blocking the walking.
So you're walk blocking.
I'm walk blocking. I'm walk blocking. At least it never.
And the dog is judging.
And the dog is being judgmental.
Judging McJudgerson over there.
Yeah. But yeah, and so, like, do you think that this is something that should be addressed? Like, as a dog owner, should it be easier for dog owners to find places than it is? Or is it, in your mind, this is the risk that you take? Are landlords being unreasonable about this?
I don't think landlords are being entirely unreasonable because there's a lot of irresponsible pet owners out there. So I don't think there's anything wrong with asking for a half month's rent as a pet deposit because an irresponsible pet owner can wreak havoc on an apartment.
Yeah.
Now, what I do think is that landlords should not be able to deny housing based on a pet. The problem is that you can't determine why a landlord does or does not accept or deny a tenant. It's a tough question because you have to balance the rights of the property owner with the rights of the renter. For me, I'm an extremely responsible pet owner. I have a challenging pet, and I'm an extremely responsible pet owner. I think landlords are good to be cautious.
Fair.
I've had roommates who were terrible pet owners, and it's been less than constructive for the tenant-landlord relationship.
Fair. Let's talk about irresponsible pet owners, and not specifically like should we beat them over the head with the glass of water that you just drank, because we could. But part of it, I wonder if it's not. Part of it is your responsibility, and is part of it also just the decision around saying that this animal isn't for you. What is a responsible way to do that? What is a responsible way to say no? Because it happens. There can be.
Okay, are you talking about a pet owner deciding that this animal is not for them, or a landlord deciding that this animal is not for their property?
Pet owner deciding the pet's not for them.
Oh, okay.
It happens because
For example, the foster that had Jebb before I got him had him for less than 24 hours. And they brought him back, and I suspect that what happened is they took Jebb for a walk, and Jebb saw another dog and freaked out, and they realized that this dog was more dog than they had signed up for, so they brought him back. That's actually the super responsible thing to do. Because had they not brought him back, I probably wouldn't have him.
No.
And for this particular dog, I am a good owner because I am single, I have no children, I don't have a spouse, I have lots of dog experience, I'm well set up for this dog. My dog, bless him, he's the sweetest little guy on the planet, is not for the first time dog owner. So I think you have to ask, energy level, does this match my family? Is this dog dominant or submissive? Is this dog easygoing? Does it require a lot of stimulation? Is it good with children? There's a lot of questions to ask.
As we're watching Jebb still be angry with us, and he's retreated to the couch.
He's sulking.
he's in sulk mode. But that's okay. He'll be happy with the podcast when it's all done.
Especially since he knows we're talking about him. Anyway, so back to your question. Choosing a dog is a really complex process, and a lot of rescues have a foster period before you're allowed to adopt. So you keep the dog for a couple of weeks, and at the end of that, you might say, okay, you know what? I'm willing to foster this dog until they find a forever home, but this is not my dog. Or you might say, you know what? This is way more dog than I can handle. You need to find somewhere else for this dog to be. I think the most responsible thing you can do is be honest about how the dog is fitting in. As much for your own family as for the dog's well-being, because dogs in homes that they're not well matched for, nobody's happy. If you get a Rottweiler, and really what you wanted was something small and fluffy like a Pomeranian that doesn't require a lot of exercise, then you're going to be mismatched with your dog.
It happens. It
happens. In my case, I like strong-willed, clever, active dogs. Somebody else might not want that. My mother wouldn't want that. She would want a nice, lovely, low-exercise lab dog.
Yeah. The veterinarian, we talked about the health. Wanted to get into the veterinarian aspect of this.
Okay.
Because it is expensive.
Yes, it is.
Very expensive. I am one that has been wondering if this is something the government or healthcare should be considered covering. And my basis on this is it's becoming more and more aware. And I'm going to personally raise my hand on this. As much as you said the dog has been good, I've been good for the dog has been good for me. I didn't come back into the world of Vancouver in the greatest of spirits coming back here.
True.
And certainly spending time with the guy that's sulking on the couch has helped. Although sulking
with Growly McDogface.
Growly McDogface may be upset, but he's been pretty helpful to me as well. So, and we know that dogs have been beneficial for those in mental health situations.
Well, I think therapy dogs are covered and their veterinary costs are at least subsidized. But I think if you're going to get a dog, you have to consider the veterinary costs. A single visit to a veterinarian is going to cost you between $50 and $150. And that's not including any extra treatment. I brought Jebb in because he had an ear infection. It was $70 for the visit and about $150 for his meds.
Oh, hello.
Jebbers, leave it alone. No. Come here. Hey, sit. Okay. You're fine. Thank you for letting me know. Good dogging.
A live example.
It's true. He was barking because the neighbor's dog was barking. Hey, Jebb, sit. Sit. Thank you. Good boy. Thank you for letting me know. Okay. Off you go. Off you go. So you need to factor in the costs of having a dog. For Jebb, he probably costs me about $100 a month. I don't have pet insurance for him. Now, here's something to consider. Depending on the breed of dog, you will pay more or less for pet insurance. If I sign up for pet insurance and I tell the insurer that I have a pit bull mix, my insurance is going to be probably between $100 and $200 a month. If I sign up for my insurer and say mixed breed unknown, it's about $30 a month. So having a quote-unquote dangerous breed of dog is going to cost you.
And he sounded dangerous just now.
Sure.
Like, very dangerous.
He's Growly McDogface.
Growly McDogface.
But really, he was just letting me know that there was a dog barking.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah. He's just giving
And as soon as I acknowledged that, yes, he'd given me information and he was a good dog.
It's like a reporter.
He went away. Yeah. Thanks for letting me know. Good job.
Yeah. Yeah. There we go. Is there anything else that you feel we should be covering?
If you're going to get a rescue dog, first and foremost, you need to apply patience. We don't expect other human beings to be comfortable with us right away. And yet we expect that we give a dog a home and it will fit in right away without any bumps or bruises. It takes a long time to get to know a dog, especially since they've probably had a home beforehand and that home is gone and they're heartbroken and they have grief and they have fears, and you need to be very, very patient and let your new dog know what you need and what you want. And it might take some time. Learn your breed. If you're attracted to a certain breed of dog, learn everything you can about that dog and decide whether or not that particular breed's requirements suit your family. That's super important. More dogs get given up because they're mismatched with lifestyle than anything else. Mm-hmm. Make sure you know a little bit about dogs. For example, grapes are toxic to dogs. Sugar-free peanut butter contains a thing called xylitol, which is extremely toxic to dogs. The level of chocolate that your dog might consume that is dangerous depends on the amount of chocolate in the chocolatey thing they ate and the size of the dog. If your dog is acting in a way that is unfamiliar, take them to the vet and make sure there's no medical concerns first. It's a really complicated process. But first and foremost, if you're going to bring a rescue dog into your house, be prepared to be patient and do a lot of teaching. If you're going to take on a challenging breed of dog, make sure you know everything about that breed beforehand. And work with your dog because they're autonomous little creatures. Patience is key for probably the first year of a rescue dog's life with you. It takes that long.
Yeah.
And be prepared to spend, I'm going to say, between $250 and $700 to purchase your rescue dog, whether you get it from a private rescue or the SPCA or the pound. There's going to be a fee. You're going to have to budget for food. You're going to have to budget for veterinary fees. You're going to have to budget your time to include exercising your dog daily and not just taking them for walks, but running them through task drills and teaching them things and integrating them with your children and other animals. And don't be hesitant to consult a dog trainer. Dog trainers aren't cheap, but they're worth it.
You have to spend the money for...
You have to be prepared to spend money if you're going to get a dog. Probably for the first year or two that you have that animal. Beyond that, chances are everything will even out. You don't have to spend money on training, and the only thing you're going to have to budget for is their monthly feeding and annual veterinary costs.
To be clear, Jen does not feed Jebb just once a month. It is daily feedings.
Oh, at least daily feedings. There's there's the kibble, there's the treats, there's the occasional human treats, there's the pizza bones, there's,
There's lots.
If you're not prepared to share your life, don't get a dog.
That's it. Well, I think we've covered a lot for people to think about.
Probably.
And so thank you very much for coming on. And
thanks to Jebb.
Thanks to Jebb. Thank you, Jebb, for allowing us to speak about you on the internet. Do you know what the internet is? He's
raising his snoot in curiosity.
Yes. It's about time for him to go out for a dogging adventure. But we will leave you this. Thank you very much for listening. Again, find me on Facebook, Kevin Olenek. Follow me on Twitter, KVOLE. Spreaker.com, KVOLE. Subscribe on iTunes. Tell your friends, Spotify, much more. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you all soon. Bye for now.
Take a trip to California and leave my poor sweetheart alone. If he has a dog, he won't be lonesome, and the doggy will have a good home. How much is that doggy in the window? The one with the waggly tail. How much is that doggy in the window? I do hope that dog is for sale.